Welcome into our first carrier update of the morning presented by Powerfleet. I'm Tony Mulvey, joined by Thomas Wasson. Thomas, this is one of my favorite maps. I wrote about it in the Daily Watch today. It's our weighted rejection index. And there's a couple interesting markets popping up.
Certainly is. And so speaking around the world in 80 days, I'm going to take you around the country in 180 seconds right now. It's about how much we have. Looking at this map is so much fun. We have the weighted amount of the markets as well as outbound tenders, the weight of the tenders in relation to the markets. And so like you said, it's kind of heating up in places. Parts of Jacksonville coming up 18 to 20%, even going out west, which is kind of unusual. We're seeing parts of Utah, Denver, Salt Lake markets heat up a little bit. And then obviously if you're still in the Great Plains and other parts of the upper part of the U.S., they're doing things. But the volume is very low. So obviously we see that, in fact, there's rejections, but maybe they're rejecting 3 loads instead of 2. So super fascinating to see. It looks like right now we're seeing a little bit of a seasonal bump. Some seasonality is coming in with springtime, and rejections are starting to reflect that.
Yeah, and I think the one that really stands out to me is Ontario, right? The West Coast. You really haven't seen any real volume growth out of the West Coast, but you're seeing rejections pick up just enough to pop up on the map, right? Granted, they're still at, 3%, right around that 3-4% range, but it's significant enough to show up in blue, whereas some of these, you look at a Dallas that's kind of in that same size range, not in Atlanta, not popping up the same way.
Exactly, and I think that's important for us to understand, is putting it in context is what makes this map so valuable. Speaking of context, we're going to kick it over to our next chart now, and it's going to be context and contract. So we have right now, the name of the game is fuel. It's still going up. The dream's not dead yet, but we'll find out eventually. So looking at contract rates, this is the initial reporting average as well as the actual stop paid. The problem is it appears we've plateaued. And so looking at the initial contract rates, looks like we're in for some choppy waters. Better buckle up your seatbelts.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. I mean, you start looking at fuel, and we've got our diesel actual truck stop, that daily national average, right? And it's at 577, which is just astronomical. I mean, you look back at where we were last year down here, it's under 350, right around that $3 mark. So, I mean, we're talking about, we're approaching those 100% increases year over year. I mean, granted, these contract rates don't include the fuel, but I mean, they're up, but they're not up at that same level, right? I mean, we're talking 20% increases as opposed to 100% increases on the cost side.
And that's the concern. Contract rates, you would want them to keep going up. So far, they're plateauing. Capacity, capacity, capacity. I'm going to say it 12 more times. Final chart, though, 30 seconds left. We're coming in hot, folks, coming to the plate, but we will be safe because look at California. And speaking of fuel, the Northeast is still having problems. Energy and economies go hand in hand. And this is the situation if you're a driver looking into this. California is getting bad, but when you see on the Drudge Report that it's going to be $100 to fill up your family car, Houston, we've kind of have a problem here. So looking at how the contract rates are not moving up to support this is the warning sign. This is something that, if this continues, we may be in for a rough ride.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this update, Thomas. We'll be sure to check in with you a little later. Right now, we'll toss it to a quick break, but we'll be back with more Freight Waves Now.